Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me with another episode of Let's Talk About the podcast. We're at, I think, close to getting to episode 10 now. So thank you for sticking with me so far as we kind of just talk about those first couple of years outside of schooling and being a professional musician. And so I have someone a little bit different today. Before I've been interviewing a lot of my friends that are going through the K through 12, but I have another one of my really talented grad school friends, Lucy, here to kind of talk to us about, or talk to me about her experience with being a performer. Yeah, I'll kind of swing it over to her and let her introduce herself.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, I'm Lucy Kimbell. I currently live in the Houston, Texas area, and I do a lot of different things. I guess freelancer is the word I would use to describe myself. And so I adjunct at the community college level. I teach lessons for students from like 5 years old all the way to high school and college. I gig when I can, and so I make my living by doing a lot of different things, but all of them at this point are still musical. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And you also, another reason why I also kind of wanted to talk to you is because you also have an interesting background too, because your bachelor's wasn't in music, right?
Correct. Yeah. Um, Back in the day, I wanted to be a veterinarian. That was what I thought I had wanted for a really long time as a kid. And so I'm from North Carolina, and I ended up going to NC State for biochemistry. I had always done music. That was a part of my life, but I thought that that wasn't something that I could um, just do as a career and make a living doing it. But I realized pretty quickly in college that vet school was not for me. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I had a music minor as well. And I found a lot of success and a lot of fulfillment in that, as well as like a handful of jobs that I was working at the time that were music related rather than STEM. And so uh, also COVID happened. And so there were a lot of big changes in everybody's life happening at that time. And I kind of came to the realization that A, I know I am a good musician. But B, I would probably regret it too much if I didn't at least try to make
Mhm.
something of myself as a musician. And so, working with some of my professors in college, I started working towards grad school, and that's what I ended up doing. We met each other in grad school, and that was great. Um, and I also met my current partner at Bowling Green, where we went to school. And so, um, so far, it's working out. We moved down to Houston after we finished both of our music masters. He's a band teacher, and I do a lot of different things, as I said before. But um, yeah, it took a lot of soul searching, but all told, I'm glad that I made that switch. I'm much happier than I think I would have been if I was some sort of chemist or researcher.
Yeah, and it's just that it's so weird because you normally hear the opposite of things. It's like, oh, my bachelor's in music, and then something happened, and now I'm in. I think the pipeline is normally like IT, or
Hmm.
like weirdly dentistry or something like that. I think
Yeah,
that's like the two.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
medical,
yeah.
but so that's why I kind of just want to also highlight that too, because normally when you hear about people like kind of switching to music stuff, it's when they're
Mm-hmm.
a lot older, maybe like kind of bored with their career, and then they start kind
Mm-hmm.
of picking up instruments. But you kind of have that introspection moment a lot earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think COVID is a big reason
Yeah.
too. That was my transition into a different form of music too, because I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be a band director while I was going through college. And
Mm-hmm.
even then, halfway through college, I was like, I don't know if this is really for me. And then COVID solidified that, oh, this is not for me. I do not want
Yeah.
problems.
I remember somebody telling me, I think it was in high school, that it was if you can see yourself doing anything besides music, then you should do that. And I was like, well, great, then I'm not going to do it. But then, the more I delved into like higher education, I was like, this doesn't make me happy. And the weird thing is, I think some misconceptions people have about like just other people in the music industry or the music world is that they're like really cutthroat and that they're not nice people. And while yes, it is really, really competitive, and not as a dig at like STEM people at all, but I always had a really competitive undergrad program because of their vet school being so highly ranked. And so the best people that I've met have been musicians and the most lovely, wonderful, like uplifting cohort of people have been the musicians in my life. And so I'm glad that I figured that out because I was kind of worried that people were going to be mean or catty or just like clicky or whatever, but I haven't really had that experience. Or maybe I've been lucky, who knows? But um, that has been also really nice to find.
Nice, yeah, and you're also, I think you're also pretty good at like sorting people's energy and being like, I don't know, they're a little too negative. I don't really want to be around them. That you're also good about like being cordial with people. So I think it's very interesting because like you've gotten like because of the competitiveness of that veterinarian program or sorry, it's the bio.
It's more just the overall attitude of and more just like demeanor of the
Mhm.
STEM world. And not to say that I didn't meet good people. I met some amazing people while I was in my undergrad that I'm still really close with. But in terms of like the vibe and
Mhm.
the community building aspect of it, I think that music has done a much better job in my life, at least.
Nice, yeah, yeah. Thank you. That was my point for that saying was that I think me being both degrees were in music. I've seen a lot of you can kind of walk away with like kind of a negative
Hmm.
interpretation about the community sometimes because you've just been kind of saturated. So it's kind of nice that you also kind of have the opposite view, which is that you went to something else. You saw how maybe that also the grass isn't necessarily greener on that
Hmm.
side, the STEM side versus the art side. And so, and same for me. Like, it's not that all musicians that I've met are jerks or anything like that. The vast
Hmm.
majority, such as yourself, such as Thomas, and a lot of people I went to, undergrad with and grad school with, like, are super chill. Sometimes the saxophones are not the most chill out of all of them. I am a saxophonist. Do not crucify me. If someone decides to comment for once on one of these videos, please do not crucify me about that. I can be critical of my own community. But it's just I think that's also just an important takeaway too, is that to remember that the grass isn't greener on the side. It's really just who you have around you. And
Hmm.
so I've said this a couple times now, but I was excited to talk to you because I wanted to know like so how are or I wanted you to be able to talk about your experience, moving down to Texas, and then now you do have Thomas, your partner, who I can hopefully, when he's not so busy, have also on here too. But you had someone to kind of transition downwards there, but at the same time, he's a band director in Texas, so right off the bat, he was busy. And not
Hmm.
saying you weren't either, but you were also networking, doing things too. So like can you talk about that transition as well of like, kind of breaking into the music community in a new city?
Yeah, it's hard. I this is our third year living in Houston-ish. And so it's one of those things where it's not going to happen right away. There's always the higher up, I feel like you get into like the higher tiers and higher paying gigs or higher quality gigs you get in the music world, the more connections you have, or you're like, oh, my voice teacher knows so and so, or this person went to this school and I did a gig with them, or whatever. Um, and I think that's such an important thing that we sometimes miss, like in our education, is that who you know is so, so, so important. And when we moved down to Houston, I didn't know like anybody there except for Thomas, who I moved down here with. And so the first year finding musical outlets was pretty difficult. There's online, portals like the Yap Tracker. I should mention I'm a singer, by the way. Um, and so there's like uh, places where you can find auditions and things like that. You kind of have to get really creative when it comes to the job search because every institution or place of work either uses Indeed or their own like independent application site. So you either have to know that these places exist or um, be good at Googling. And so when I first moved down through a friend of mine at Bowling Green, who's like, hey, there's this community college system that I think is in Houston that might be worth your time. And so I wouldn't have known to look up Lone Star College. Um, and I was lucky enough to land an adjunct position teaching private voice lessons. But the thing is with my campus, it was the first year post COVID that they were accepting music majors at all. So the program was really, really small. I was not getting a lot of hours at all, but I loved the work. The students were really, really great. Um, and there was an opportunity for growth. And so I'm really, really thankful that I'm still there. And I now like lecture music appreciation, and my studio has gotten larger, the program has gotten larger. But in the beginning, it was like I was not working very much. So I was a substitute teacher that first year. I had like some small performing gigs very much. I was lucky to have a lot of savings when I moved down, and I ate through most of them that first year. Um, and then during the summers, I work in North Carolina at the North Carolina Governor's School, and I'm not going to talk about that for too long because then I really will talk for way too long. But it is very important to me, and I think it's great. The North Carolina Governor's School, it's wonderful. Um, but that summer, Thomas was looking for a new school to work at, and we weren't sure how that was going to work out. And so, just through Indeed, I found essentially like they call it a warehouse, and that's kind of what it is. But they teach lessons and like piano and voice and theater and dance and stuff. And I sent an application in, and I had never really worked with small children before, like elementary age. But I was open to it because I was sort of broke. But I like working with kids. I just wasn't sure if that was the age group for me. And so I started working there, and then I also started a church gig. The first year I was here, I had previously in grad school had a kind of intense church job that I really loved, but it was like a lot of effort to put in. Um, and then when I got the church job, I was meeting new people who also have connections in the city. And so this is year two that I'm talking about. And so I have this church gig. And two of the people I work at like a private school in Houston that also teaches lessons. And they're like, hey, next school year, we need a voice teacher to add. Do you want to join us? And the pay was really, really good. And so now in my third year in Houston, I still adjunct. I teach lessons at that warehouse, and I teach lessons at a different school in like Houston proper. And so, also with that church gig, I'm also part of a professional choir. Um, and one of the weird connections is that the director went to Bowling Green like 10 or 15 years before I did. And so we like knew some mutual people. And I think that probably helped me getting into the choir. Um, and so it takes longer than you would expect. And so, kind of the not so fun thing about being a freelancer is that sometimes you just got to take the icky jobs. Not that substitute teaching was an icky job, but it's not necessarily what you think you're going to be doing as a musician. And so, being open to being able to survive financially is a reality that you have to um, negotiate. Maybe that's the word I want to use. And so as you spend more time in a city, you meet more people, you never know who's going to connect you with someone else. And so making sure that um, your professionalism, your outgoingness, your friendliness, things like that, um, really go a long way. And they've definitely gone a long way for me in terms of finding gigs and finding jobs.
Awesome. Yeah, so how have you balanced the of course the grind, but also like not being too hard on yourself about like where your at right now, what opportunities that maybe you couldn't have or like you wanted to do but like didn't end up lining up or something like that, or
Hmm.
just like going through it, because it's hard to see long term sometimes that like you're actually doing really well. Like you were saying, you're like
Hmm.
the networking is slow, so therefore you don't really see it. But now that you're year three in, you did a lot as a foundation that kind of got you where the positions and the different opportunities that you have. But in the middle of it,
Hmm.
it can be discouraging. So like, did you feel that at all? And if so, how did you kind of balance that little voice in the back of your head?
Yeah. The nice thing is that it's been like a gradual build of work, and with that I've been able to balance everything. So like I basically get to make my own schedule. So I know how many students I have at the college. I can tell my other places what days of the week I want to be there. But uh, especially in the beginning it was rough because who you know is so important. When you don't know anybody and you show up to an audition, everybody looks like they're friends with each other. And you're like, I don't know any of you people and I want to do well and I want to be friendly, but I don't want to be weird or obnoxious. And um, the other thing with that too is I feel like the focus of a lot of academic institutions when it comes to teaching singers is that like opera is king of everything else. Like if you're going to make it as a classical singer, like you have to do opera. And that is something that I really love. And I've done some opera gigs in the last couple of years. But ultimately, Houston is a really good art city. But what comes with that is a lot of saturation of singers. And so if you want to be doing like a Houston Grand Opera chorus or an opera in the Heights, it's very competitive. And that's okay, which means you're getting a lot of good quality singers. But for me, most of my money has been through concert work. And so it's something that I really love. And I love good choir singing as well. But you kind of get more of an impression in school that it's like you have to do opera, you have to be doing all of these programs and spending money to go and do these things and spending money to do XYZ to build your career, where that's just not feasible for everybody. It's certainly not feasible for me. And so finding your niche and what you're good at has been helpful for me because there's times where you get a lot of no's as a musician, and I knew that going in. But you kind of have to let it brush off. And I'm still working on becoming a professional auditioner. It's still not my favorite thing to do, but it's part of like what being a musician is. But um, I think I've been lucky to have some really great mentors throughout my musical journey who have um, seven me up. I don't think is the right way to say it because I don't think I'm very thick skinned. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'm a Cancer, so I love to cry. But it's one of those things where the older I get, the less I associate like my self-worth with how successful auditions go because like my church job. I go there once a week and I sing my thing and it's not particularly difficult music, but I know that it makes an impact on the people that go to church there. Um Again, I'm going to come back to governor school for like 2 seconds. I work with high schoolers every summer, and um, is it the best pay in the world? No, but it's something that's really special to me that I love. And you have students that are like, "You changed my life," and I'm like, "Whoa, I don't remember doing that." But um, for me, just like the impact that you can have as a musician goes a lot farther and a lot deeper than you think. And even like, a 7-year-old piano student just makes my day. And I am I bringing in big bucks right now? No. Am I making enough to survive? Yeah. And I feel like I'm making smaller impacts and differences in the people that I work with or the people that I teach. And so, in times where you get a bunch of no's or you get discouragement or have a bad singing day or whatever, that is the sort of thing where it's like, I'm doing the right thing. I already made the hard choice to back away from STEM to be a musician. And so there's not much that's a lot scarier than that for me. So the scary part is kind of over, and the perseverance and the impact I find is like what makes it easier to keep going on the path.
Okay, I like that. It kind of just builds on its own, and it's hard again to see, but like I'm always part of the reason why I always want to I try to do this is because it's like a nice friendly pulse check on how everyone is doing, all my
Mm,
friends and stuff like that. So I like to keep up with y'all, and like I always like to hear how we're in our own ways overcoming this. Like some people it's more serious and it's more imposter syndrome. Other people it's just like how are you dealing with life in your 20s post school? So
yeah.
like it's all both of them are super relatable. So you mentioned too about being like a professional auditioner, and I also sympathize with that too because I'm trying to get back. One of my goals this year is to try to get back more into writing, so I'm kind of reaching out for opportunities for things that necessarily don't have like a I'm not getting paid for it. I just need to write. And I feel like just having certain opportunities would be nice. So I'm also applying for call for scores again,
Mm,
which has also been a hump too because I'm like I don't really want to it's hard to get off that hump of being like is this even worth my time, blah 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 blah. And so how have you kind of navigated finding what opportunities to audition for are like worth your time, like either because I don't know how much audition fees for performers are versus like normally a call for score for me is like they can range from anywhere from like free to some of them go up to like 50 or something like that.
mm,
And I kind of stick around 20 myself. If it's 20, no more than 20. But then also like there's also huge competitions that are there. And
mm,
then I also don't apply for those because I just don't think that that's worth my time at that
mm.
point because the pool is so big. So how on your side of things, how do you kind of balance that?
Um, for my own sanity, I don't have a subscription to Yap Tracker anymore, which is Young Artist Program Tracker, where a bunch of opera companies throughout the world submit like auditions and things, and you have to pay to even see what's out there and to apply. And a lot of the times you're paying for those. Since I'm relatively settled in Houston, it's more like I'm in Facebook groups where people say, hey, there's this choir, they're having auditions. Hey, there's this opera company, they're having auditions. And so I think I'm really lucky that I'm in such a large city with a lot of artistic opportunities that for the most part, I'm not paying to audition for these places, but I am having to put in like pre-screen videos where like I learn a cut and of a choir piece and then they let me know if they want to see me audition in person. Um I guess kind of what I've been experiencing this year is that I've been going through the doctoral application process, which depending on which institutions you're applying to, if you're an in-state applicant, you sometimes can get an application fee waived. But in terms of like the preparation, I think that's where the money comes in. So voice lessons, headshots. I don't have a website, but I should. Paying for those sort of things is kind of where it rolls in for me. And so I consider myself to be a little frugal. And so I probably am on the lower end compared to other singers and how much money they spend in preparation for a lot of these auditions. And also since like I know what I'm doing every summer, I have a pretty good gig going on just in my year to year basis what I'm doing. And so sometimes something might pop out that I may say, oh, that'd be cool to try to audition for. Um, but if it's not like Houston based, I may not be necessarily looking for it in this moment.
That's good to also know too, is that remember the area that you're in, like you don't have to search far and wide for things.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's another thing too, as a young just professional in general, is that, you know, it is most of the time it's external pressures to like be open to like moving and not really settling down in one place. Part of
Mm-hmm.
that is because, especially for us nowadays, the thing way the world works is that unfortunately you do kind of have to move around until you find your spot. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're lucky enough to either a, you know, be able to be rooted where you know, kind of grew up around, or be, you know, kind of in your situation, which is like you took a leap of faith and that leap of faith has stuck for you and your
Hmm.
partner, then it's okay to just be like, no, I like this area. I'm gonna sit
Hmm.
here for a minute, and you know, whatever opportunities around here, I'm gonna till the soil here as much as I can, see what pops up.
Well, and what really works out too is like, again, I hate being like the networking thing is super important, but it is. But a lot of my gigs these days, it's like someone reaches out and they're like, "Oh, hey, we did this thing together. We'd love to have you for XYZ." Like my choir director from undergrad was like, "I direct a community choir in North Carolina, and we're doing a Mozart masterwork. Do you want to come and be the soprano soloist?" And I'm like, "Of course I do." And again, doesn't pay amazing, but I get to go home for a weekend and sing some beautiful music, add it to my CV, and go about my business. And so I think really building your community is super important. And like through the people I've met, that's how I've gotten the most opportunities.
And I don't think it's a bad thing to harp on the networking thing too. I think it's like one of those slightly unspoken, like known industry known thing, but also slightly unspoken thing is that it
Hmm.
really is about who you know. And so I think it can definitely help people remember that a lot of the times like it isn't personal. Like
Hmm.
if you're you know trying for a bunch of these different things and you're not really getting any results, like people go with people that they know and they
Hmm.
trust. And so it's
Yeah.
not necessarily a personal attack on your artistry or you as a person. Although, caveat, some people might need to work on their personality a little bit. They might need to, and I think this is just kind of what I'm getting is that it's important to remember to be nice,
Hmm.
as well as it is to be, you know, um, uh, punctual and conversational, as well as, of course, you know, focusing on your craft. Like all those things are kind of, in
Hmm.
my mind at least, equally important because I've met a lot of people that are super talented, or not a lot, but I've met some people that are super talented, but just not great to work with. Like
Hmm.
I hear like from friends or like other things, and just like they'll hint around it, but they're like, yeah, you know, their music is great, their voice is great, their you know, technicality is unmatched. Not the greatest person to work with, but you
Yeah.
know, I did it for the CV or the resume or
Hmm.
something like that.
Hmm.
And there's always going to be in whatever profession there are always going to be moments where you do it for the resume building, you do it for the
Hmm.
CV building, you do it for the
Hmm.
opportunity. But I think as a community, it would be even better for us to also not necessarily like check each other, but like just remember that it also pays well to be a cordial person and you know just pretty easy to work with as long as people aren't trampling over your boundaries.
Yeah, I'm not like a person who does affirmations all the time, but there's again through this whole like doctoral process has been I keep telling myself I'm a delight. I'm a pleasure to work with. And you know, I work every day to make sure that continues to be true. But I'm like, you know, I have to recognize my strengths to keep going in this industry. And while other people also have strengths, um, knowing that whatever you have is unique to you and how you can market yourself in that way. And I think that really helped because like I'm gonna go back to school in the fall. And so yay, I'm gonna be a
We're
doctor.
not
I'm
gonna
so
let you breeze
excited.
past that. Like, like you're going back to school in the fall. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to be going to the University of Houston for their DMA. And through the whole process, I was like, this is a lot of work, which I knew it was going to be. But I was like, man, I really don't want to have to do this application process again. Just like the school, fine, I can do that. I can handle the workload, but this application, don't want to have to do it again. No, I don't. So,
Yes.
because
Love
I'm a
it.
delight.
Yes. Taking to heart that the comment that I always used to get in school, which is a pleasure to have in class. You're
There you
damn
go.
right I was. Every
Hmm.
time, every year.
Yeah.
And honestly, you've gotten me like Um, okay, don't be weird about it, but like you're a big inspiration for me because you're the person who kind of got me, you know, confident enough to start doing, reaching out to places and doing lessons and stuff like that. I told you that, I
Mhm.
applied for a place in the fall and, I taught my first, sub lessons in January. It's been kind of dry because, we're low key in a recession at this point. So I don't think that there's really been any opportunities that have arisen, or they just haven't told me. But of course, I'm keeping my head held high and saying it's probably just
Mhm.
that they haven't any opportunities. But I did it. I always thought that like,
Mhm.
oh, I had to be like, super good at this, or like my teaching pedagogy has to be like amazing. And it's like, no, they're 12. The biggest problem is they don't put enough air through the instrument. It'll be fine. You just remind them air, and then things get better. So, and then also too, it's like I found myself like at work earlier this week, just like kind of scrolling through like grad programs, and I'm like, do I want to? The answer is no, but it got
Mhm.
me thinking
The
again.
worst thing that somebody can tell you is no. And so being a musician, I will say this a lot, is that like being an artist is kind of inherently silly and embarrassing. And so you have to lose all of your sense of shame or guilt. And working with kids is a great way to like not be embarrassed about anything because they'll say whatever and you're like, okay, you're five. And so it's like taking things a little bit like obviously it's my career, so I take my craft very seriously, but in the grand scheme of things, not to like take every audition as like this is the most important thing I will ever do. That it's like I train myself to sing a silly song in a language that I don't speak very often. And being okay with that and having a little brevity and lightness to it is also something that keeps it not so doom and gloom and competitive blah.
Yeah, it's okay to be a little silly sometimes, just a little
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah.
So, you're also my first person that I've talked to that's continuing to a doctorate level. Like I've had one or two people that are either I think one person was considering getting their master's from bachelor's, and another person was actively they're teaching. I think it was Miriam. She's teaching and she's getting her master's at the same time because I think her program was paying for it. So,
Mhm.
what made you want to get the doctorate, and where do you see yourself doing that? Because we've been out of school for about 3 years now,
Mhm.
so I know a lot of times people take a break anyway, as you should. If you're, I always tell people at my job or students at my job, like if there's any ounce of you that is tired, take the break.
Yeah.
And it's important to like build your CV and you know audition for things and stuff like that for a DMA, of course. But like for you, what was kind of like the has it always been like a dream to get a DMA, or was there a catalyst, and kind of like why now, and then what do you want to see yourself doing with it? That was like four questions at
Yeah.
once. So
No, 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 no. Well, I mean, I don't like saying it's a petty part of me because it's not really a petty thing, but the childhood dream of being a veterinarian, I wanted a doctor in front of my name, even though it's not going to be the same kind of doctor that I thought it was going to be. Um, I really love higher education. My voice teacher during my master's she's like, nobody knows what they want to do after a master's degree. And she was kind of right because I had like I wanted to teach, but I wasn't sure like in what capacity I wanted to perform. I kind of wanted a little bit of everything. And so these last couple of years has been really helpful in determining what I want. And also the fact like going straight from a master's to a doctorate is a lot of work. And also you just don't get that life experience. Like it's my first couple of years of just like having a like jobs that, you're not doing anything else. You're not doing school. You're just doing your job. Um, and so, especially through my like community college teaching, I found that that's the age of students that I like to work with best. And so, while I really love getting to make my own schedule and do my own thing and like, uh, stick my hands in a lot of different areas of music, I want a retirement plan. I want full-time work. And if I want to be in academia, the market is turning more and more into you're going to need some sort of terminal degree to be competitive in that market, especially if you want something like tenure track. positions.
Hmm.
And so, because we feel really settled here in Houston, the University of Houston and Rice are kind of the options, but they're really, really good options. And so, kind of the more I went through this process and talking with faculty, I was just really impressed with UH's program that they adjust to what the market standards continue to change to be, and making sure that their graduates are ready to be competitive in the job market. And so, I feel like I am a little bit on the younger side to start a degree because also with singers, you're not really coming into your voice or like settling in until like, in my opinion at least, until like your 30s, and I'm 26. And so, it was one of those things where I could wait until I feel like I'm ready or that my voice is ready. But that's the point of school, right? Is to improve. And I would rather have full-time work sooner rather than later. So why not at least just like put my hat in the ring and see what happens? And thankfully, I feel very lucky and blessed that it worked out. And I'm really proud of the work that I put in. And I'm really excited to go back to school because I like writing papers and being in shows and picking my own research projects. And so that's the thing that I love so much about academia. And so, um, hopefully afterward, who knows if we'll stay in Houston or not, but eventually some sort of university teaching position is kind of the end goal for me.
Nice. Yeah. And I think also too, I wanted to ask like, kind of shifting away from like jobs and stuff like that, and kind of going back a little bit to more personal life, just a little bit. Of course, if there's anything that you don't want to talk about, then we don't have to talk about it at all. But like, um, it's something that I've often thought about. Like, so, how is it like balancing your like kind of sporadic schedule as a musician, and then, finding time in your own like relationship with Thomas, with balancing, his like very strict and sometimes long
Mm-hmm.
things. Basically, asking like living and being with another musician at the same time, like, if there's anybody who might stumble upon this and like their partner is in the same them and their partner in the same situation, do you have like any
Mm-hmm.
advice about that too, about like kind of dealing with those two like really hectic schedules in the same
Yeah.
field?
Relationships are not 50-50. That's just not how life works, especially when you have two people that live together and are trying to like make a life together. And so especially in the beginning when I wasn't working as much, like I'm just at home more and so I'm able to, clean the house a little bit more and take care of those sort of things. But the more that I work, sometimes we have to balance it out. I mean, both of us cook, but I work in the evenings a lot more often than he does. And I just don't see him during marching band season. I go to the football games and then I'm like, oh my gosh, he's here. Um, and so it's one of those things that we both feel really fulfilled by the work that we do. But always like we try to make a conscious effort to make time for each other. It's like even if we're like going to the grocery store, I'm like, is this a date? Are we going on a date? And then we're like, yeah, we're going on a date to the grocery store. Um,
I love
and
that.
so, and because music is our lives, trying to make sure we have other outlets besides music. So like currently my work schedule, I'm like, I'm not doing anything on Fridays. Then I can like go to a voice lesson or I can hang out with a friend or I could just clean my house or go on a walk or whatever. And so it I have to, for my own sanity, I cannot just be like music, 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 music all the time or I'll go crazy. So like Thomas is really into cars and the weather's been great this spring. So like we go out to a car show in a parking lot where people bring their old Mustangs and stuff and we just go and look. Or we just go to the movies or play a video game together. It's more of just like a conscious effort thing and recognizing that like this is a part of our lives where we're both going to be really really busy, but we're working towards something that we have a life together now, but looking 5-10 years down the road, um one of those things where hopefully in the future things wind down to be something that we can just like, spend more time together. We've been used to spending summers apart a lot, so it's like we're not, attached at the hip to the point where it's like, "Oh, he's gone." Um, and it's helpful that we were friends before we started dating, and so um, the it's different for everybody. And then I know that for some people that might be a lifestyle that's too difficult for them to not be able to see their partner for those periods of time. But um, communication's important. You have to talk to each other. Don't let things get like so bottled up that then you just explode. But it's, we both go through, hills and valleys of days or weeks that are easier or harder than others. And so when that happens, one of us or the other of us will pick up the slack and keep going. And so, um, yeah, of course, there's going to be times that are difficult, but ultimately, like, we both know what we were getting into as both being musicians. And so, um, it's a day by day. You wake
It's a
up, every
day
day
by
is
day.
different. Hmm.
Period. Okay. Yeah, I just think, it's just a refreshing point of view to hear sometimes as well, and like a reminder for certain people. So, whenever I have a guest that like has like certain situations, it's like, ooh, I think this also might be something to talk about. I just want to bring it up
Mm.
to see what
Yeah.
insights y'all might have as wise folks you are. So, yeah. Again, I'm just really happy for you. I just love hearing that you're going back, and everything's kind of working out because I think I know for me, there was a stigma about being freelance. Like I knew I wanted to be, or no, I knew I wanted to be a composer and do that full time at one point. But I think like the word freelance was so taboo and so hard to
Hmm.
hear in my mind that I'm like, uh, what else can I do to kind of
Yeah.
also do that? So like it's been the last maybe year ish that um I'm letting myself like no, yes, you are technically freelance and therefore
Hmm.
it's okay. Like you make your own opportunities because of that. So it's
Hmm.
okay if life is lifing and I need to focus on something else and then that comes away and then I'm not doing
Yeah.
as much. But it also means that when I am at a point when I want to do more, that means that I have to have the self starter in me
Hmm.
to do the more. So like when I'm stable again, that means that I can't complain that life's hard. Well, I can because life is just generally
It
hard. But
is. It is.
I can't say that I'm not doing enough when I actually now have the capacity again to do
Hmm.
enough. So like I said, you kind of inspire me in that, and just like you just I don't know. You're one of my few friends that are doing the freelance thing, and then just you're just doing the damn thing, and
Thanks.
that's also something that I'm working on this year is just do it. If there's something that I want to do, we're just gonna try for it. But
I
yeah, thank
should mention, be
mhm.
really good at keeping track of your finances for tax season because as a freelancer, you don't get a lot of W-2 work, and then it can make your tax return a nightmare, and also you have to pay a lot of money to the government. So just for the people out there, I'm not going to do a whole shtick on that, but watch your stuff for your taxes because
That is fair. That is
it
very
can
fair.
be careful. But yes, it is nice to do what you want and to be a musician, and that is a gift. And so I feel really lucky that I get to do it.
Love it. Okay, well, I have a couple of closing things that I always like to do because sometimes we touch on heavy topics, and so I don't want people to walk away and then be like, and then like have to lay back down in bed. Especially with me mostly doing these on Saturdays or Sunday mornings, I don't want to mess up someone's day. So, just ending positively. So like, what are three things that you are proud that you've accomplished since we graduated?
Hmm. Um, because the community college system is typically like 2-year degrees, I've now experienced like helping students transfer to 4-year schools into music degrees, and I'm really proud of
Okay.
them. And they text me and email me how they're doing, and um, that's one of the things I'm proud of. That like students that I've worked with, after I've finished working them, they'll email me or text me or DM me on Instagram, and I love to hear how they're doing. And then I'm like, oh, it's worth it. Um, I think grad school is kind of the obvious one. I'm quite proud of myself for that. It was a
As you
lot of
should.
music that I had to learn. It was a lot of writing and just a huge package that I had to prepare that for the audition I needed an hour of music, but I only sang three pieces of it, and that's a little scary. And so that's probably the really big one. Um, what is something else? Um, Making friends outside of college is hard, and I have friends, and that's really nice that I'm actually gonna go like hang out with one of my friends this afternoon, and we're just gonna sit at her house, and it's gonna be great.
Bring back the house hangs.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been doing that all year. It's getting a little expensive out there. Bring back the house hangs.
Mhm.
Absolutely, yes. Okay, sweet. That being said, what's something in the near future that you're looking forward to, like other than grad school, of course?
Mm, yeah, I am. Oh no, it's blurry. I am excited about the governor's school. It's yeah, I spend a month there every summer working with high schoolers, and I looked at all of their auditions in the spring, and now I'm working with some other faculty to like kind of plan for the summer and have some really good friends there that I only see for like 2 months out of the year, and so I'm really hyping up for that.
Yes, love it. And then you've dropped a lot of really good nuggets already, but is there any like final advice you have to singers or just performers in general who've recently graduated or people who are about to leave and like are either, you know, going to, a master's program or they're done with their master's or their bachelor's even and are about to themselves also be a freelancer?
Mhm. Um, I mean, I'm not going to deny that it's hard because it is. Like existing in this world is a difficult thing to do. But don't let the difficult things turn you away from the beautiful things that could happen. Don't let people dull your sparkle or your wonderment. I'm trying not to get too woo-woo about it, but I'm a
It's
little
okay.
woo-woo.
We can be
Um,
a little woo woo, a little whimsy, yeah.
but it's like I said before, music is a gift, and not only is it like something that you can give to other people, but it's something that you can give to yourself. And so it's not just a money thing; it's a you do it because you love it, and don't let that kind of get lost along the way.
Okay, I love it. And then lastly, are there any plugs that you want me to include in like the description? Like, um, if the governor's school has like a Instagram page or something like that that you want me to include, or I have a website on my list, but you just said you don't
I
have
don't
yours,
know.
and
I
that's
need
fine.
to worry
And
about
and
that.
if I can, if you do ever decide to do it, just pay that person to do it because I paid someone to start it and then I was like I'm too discombobulated and then I finished it myself. Pain in the
Hmm.
ass. Just pay that person to do it and have
Yeah,
all your stuff up front so you can just send them. Or
yeah.
like any other ensemble or something like that that you are part of.
This past season, I've been a member of the Core Mundi Chamber Choir, and so they're
Okay.
a new ensemble in Houston that I'm a part of. They sing really, really well. And so we've done some historical music, we've done some modern stuff. Hopefully, I might be. I don't know. It's a whole new season, so things change. I don't know. But it's a really great group, and they sound great, and I like singing with them a lot. But they're on the social medias. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I. That's kind of the big one. Yeah, community college is great. Don't knock it till you try it. Yeah, that's kind of it.
Well, thank you so much for taking a Saturday morning to catch up, to chat. I always love hearing from you. Yeah, I'm excited to hear how your doctoral studies are going to go in the fall. Again, if you ever need someone to write something for you for like a concert or something like that, or a recital, let me know.
Okay.
But yes, thank you so much, and thank you guys for listening to another episode of the Let's Talk About It podcast, and I will see you all around.